Hey, meteorologist James Wieland here with another episode of the Impact Zone surfing blog show. We have Ty the weather guy next to me to make sure. I don't know what he's watching. He's watching 80s hairband videos, which he calls oldies because he wasn't even born back then. Oh Lord. Anyways, we do have some waves in the forecast. We're going to go over a few things here and a few possibilities in the tropics too. Technically, it is the climatological peak of hurricane season, right, Ty the weather guy?
Oh, that is correct.
And we have 0 named storms out there. 0. Very unusual for this time of year because technically, when you compile all the data together and all the numbers, this day is the most likely day to see tropical activity out there, and we have none. But we have a couple of possibilities, but again, they're not storms out there, and that's what the peak means. Okay, so let's go over a few things first. Let me get rid of my mug out here so I don't cover the screen. And we're going to look at a few things going on if the computer stays together this time. We have, first we'll talk about the faraway system. It's out here, way out in the Atlantic. The Hurricane Center is giving it, what is it, 70, 80? 70% chance to develop. And it is looking kind of good out here. You see it here. The problem is all of this right here, dry air. This will, like a sponge, and it sometimes does, just eat away at the possibilities of this happening. And we saw it in the last system. Notice we're not even talking about the last one because it got gobbled up, gone just west of the Azores. So we'll have to see if this one makes it through. The thinking is that it will somehow battle this and win here, all this dry air in here. I can't fit this whole image on the page here, but if I move this around, you can see pretty expansive. And we even see down here at the bottom here, it's like the very edge of it. You get a little kind of wind surge right at the edge of all this dry air coming on in. So, but the thinking is, and the models have been pretty consistent about at least giving this thing the chance to develop into something. Now, to varying degrees, of course, the GFS, as it always does, spins it up into a monster hurricane, and the European barely has it as a tropical storm and then kind of unwinds it, actually, through time. So we'll have to see what this thing does, but conditions are favorable. That's why it does have a high chance to develop here, so we'll have to see what happens. All right, closer to home now. Bing. Wait, that's not it. There we go. We got this one closer to home. And this one's really starting to look impressive here. I was talking about this on Sunday, so if you watched my Sunday video, you saw that I was saying that there was a possibility of that upper level low kind of unwinding a little bit and allowing this lower level low to maybe possibly spin up. And you're kind of seeing it now. Oops, stopped it at the wrong time. Let me see if I can go back here. I'll try to... Yeah, every time I get it at that last part. Okay, so anyways, and I did it again. Let's try 4 times here. The 4th time is the charm. All right, there we go. So you can see like a little low starting to form. You see a little banding going on here, and you see it's trying to form a little low-level center there. It's not directly underneath all this convection. That's what we'd want to see for it to spark up. Here's all, the deep convection right here is off towards the west of it. And we see a little bit of banding to the north of it too. So, this kind of feeds into it and allows this thing to really start to develop. So there are those possibilities. Now, they're not huge possibilities, but they're there, and we'll have to keep an eye on this thing here. We have some of the models, and I'll show you here in a second. The NAM wants to bring it up like this and then pull it straight down like this, which is kind of an odd solution there, but an indication of a high pressure building up above here, up to the north, and that forces it down to the south. So not out of the question, but it is a little bit loopy. And then a lot, the main models, the European and the GFS, what they want to do is they basically just want to bring this thing straight towards us, maybe try to spin it up in here, but then by the time it gets to here, it's just an open wave as it comes over the state, and then and that's about Friday, and then emerges into the Gulf by Saturday. Either possibility, we could see a little bit of a surge in wave action. The winds aren't terribly impressive, but if it does get a chance to spin up, we could be looking at maybe a little increase in east or east-northeast wind chop. But on top of that, we're also going to get a little underlying groundswell, and I'm going to show you that in a second here. But so we could get a little bump up, and I'm thinking that's going to be on Thursday, Friday is when we may see that, and a little bit better to the north, say maybe half of Palm Beach County northward, we'll see that little bump up and swell there. Kind of a mix, though, a mix of ground swell and wind swell together. There's not a whole lot of wind on the back side of this, kind of coming up from the southeast, but that could prolong it a little bit as it moves into the Gulf on Saturday. We could see a little bit of a southeast surge coming up, and that'll make a little wind swell then. Not much, maybe knee high or so, but I guess we take what we get here. Elsewhere across the area, well, you do have a little low offshore up here, and there is producing a little bit of a northeast fetch that if you time it here, we're on Wednesday. This started happening yesterday where this low moved off and this little fetch formed, right in this area here. Right up there. So that is in our window. It's not directly pointed at us, but I do think it'll send a little bump our way, and that's starting tomorrow. So a little bit of an underlying groundswell coming on in out of the northeast, and that should push down into at least half of Palm Beach County. And then on top of that, we're looking at least a little bit of bump up from this system out here into the Gulf of Mexico. Into the Bahamas. So here's what I'm talking about here, and you can see this is the current conditions, and you see this little fetch from this low, and then another one out here. Again, not the greatest, but it is something. And as we go through time, we'll just kind of scooch this along real quick, because I don't want this video to last forever. Oops, I did it too far. We'll go for 36 hours here. You see this low moves on off, and then the fetch is gone. So that's kind of short-lived there. And this is the GFS. So take it for what it is. Tropic-wise, it always tries to bump something up a little bit greater than what it should. And here, I'll show you. Here's what is it, 91L, is it? Yes. Second one, yeah, because 90L kind of just got torn up and gone, and now we got 91L right here, and it's starting to spin up. This is 36 hours, I guess, or a little bit greater, 54 hours actually. And then we also see this little fetch developing too, so this is interesting to see that. So that's nice. We have a couple wave sources going out there. And as we go through time, we'll look at this fetch over here, just this little low developing. It does produce something. It's not terribly strong at first, but then it does strengthen here. You see some oranges in there. That's 40 or so knots, and it is in our swell window. Here's our swell window right there. Well, actually, it should be towards Bermuda, but so it's in there, and it's pointed in the right direction. You see it here. It's pointed in there. So we could see that, and this is, what day is this? This is Sunday, so for something way out here, that's about the 3-day time frame for the swell to get here, so we're talking about next Wednesday, we may see a little bump up in northeast, but at the same time, if this was to develop out here into our next hurricane, we would see this swell start to hit probably Wednesday afternoon and then last through maybe Friday or so. But remember, anything coming from this direction like this and making a hook out here, South Florida gets nothing thanks to the big old wall called the Bahamas here. So that would only be for Central Florida northward, say Sebastian northward would get the swell from whatever this system is. Even Sebastian would be kind of cut down a little bit. You'd have to go farther than that to get the full brunt of the swell. And interestingly enough, here's another system right here, and this looks interesting too, because in a few days it puts us kind of in this area, so that's definitely something to watch. So it also, and what I don't believe here with this model, keeps just insisting on something being in the Gulf, and maybe some feedback issue or something or other going on with the GFS, because it's really the only one that says it. And as we go through time, see, we got this going on, and then, you know, we have a storm here, and then a storm here. I just don't believe these two things here at the same time. And then now, especially this curving back towards Florida, while this still comes this way and then hooks around. So I wouldn't believe this Gulf thing going on yet at all. We'll have to see. You know, there is going to be a big high up in here, and usually when you have that, this kind of pumps a lot of the air and stuff down into the Gulf of Mexico, and that helps things spin up like that. You got to excuse we're doing something in the studio here, so there's going to be some background noise.
Boo.
I know. Is there anybody even in here? Yeah, thanks, dude. So anyways, I wouldn't get too excited about that quite yet, but definitely something to watch, because here's what it does. It kind of absorbs into the same system. I don't know. It's just an odd solution to have, so I'm not really believing that right now. What has consistently happened, though, is this one developing into something. So that's good news. Again, that should send swell around midweek next week to Central and North Florida. Again, South Florida doesn't get it, but we could see a little bit from this kind of mixing in too. That's going to pull out in this direction. So a lot of wave makers on the map. Now let's rewind here, and we're going to change the model. So here's what the GFS has for the system close to us in the Bahamas. An open wave, wind not that strong at all. We'll zoom in here. And keeps it an open wave, but brings obviously some rain our way. The wind here, notice not all that strong. In fact, if I just saw this, it wouldn't be much more than knee high. And again, northeast before it comes through, southeast after it passes. And the GFS pretty much keeps it an open wave. You see it here. An open wave, the wind not strong at all, and then it turns southeast going into the weekend. This is Saturday, so you know, the wind not that strong. So I'm thinking, if anything, we're talking Friday, we might see a little bump up, maybe knee to maybe waist high if we're lucky, say Jupiter northward, where they're seeing more of the that northeast push to it as it kind of the momentum of it pushes it on through. Let me rewind again. Let me show you the crazy NAM. And we'll put this into motion here. And see, here it is right here. Doesn't look that impressive. And then as it goes north of the Bahamas, north of Abaco. And then it drops south, strengthens as it gets over the Gulf. Ooh, wait, this is a different run. How about that? Well, look at this. The earlier run had this thing strengthening and dropping south and just blowing up over the Gulf Stream and the Straits. So I don't really think that's going to happen. And in fact, you know, there you go. The new model run doesn't really have it happening that much. It keeps it kind of an open wave. It does drop it south, though, but keeps it an open wave as it goes out into the Gulf of Mexico. So let's look at the European real quick, and I'll show you here. It kind of has the same deal. So that's what I'm thinking anyways. You have some kind of agreement somewhat of keeping it as a weak system and then moving over the state late Thursday and on into Friday. That could give us a little bit of a bump up is about all. Now, we are at the peak of hurricane season, but traditionally October is a busier month for South Florida than the peak is. So we still have a long ways to go before, at least a month or so, of more active weather for hurricane season. November is usually very slow. And we do have this going on too. So the MJO is going to start to push into our area in about a week or so. it gets into phase 8 and 1 and kind of hangs out over here. And from what I looked at Sunday, this is a little bit stronger. So that could mean, that could give the extra boost for all these things that I just talked about to start happening. And if it sits over here for a couple of weeks, we could rifle off, 4 or 5 storms real quick here in just a short period of time of the month of September. So keep that in mind. We still have a lot to go. And then, of course, in October, we could be talking about cold fronts, maybe some wind chops, some wind swell with big high pressure moving in, and at least we get something out there. October is usually a windy month, so we get that. And then as we get into the winter surf season, should be starting to get good, at least, with wave chances going up pretty much weekly. All right, that's it for now. Take it easy. See you in the water. Peace.